My son's wife was showering with the door open at midnight. I froze in the hallway, my hand hovering over the polished wooden banister, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure the entire house could hear it. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock, even the soft whir of the upstairs fan faded into nothingness as my eyes caught the warm glow spilling from the slightly ajar bathroom door. Steam curled lazily into the hallway, thick and golden under the dim nightlights. My steps faltered, then I walked closer, convinced the room was empty, only to realize too late that I was about to walk straight into a nightmare. And there she was. My son's wife, naked, water cascading down her toned shoulders, droplets catching the light like tiny sparks, her hair plastered to her back, glistening. She didn't notice me at first. I froze, my stomach twisting, my face paling as my mind screamed at me to turn and retreat. Every instinct screamed danger. Yet I was rooted to the spot. Then her voice cut through the steam, soft, teasing, deliberately measured. I didn't expect anyone tonight. I blinked rapidly, unable to process. Her tone was playful, yes, but underneath it was a sharp edge, a knowing confidence that made my blood run cold. I stepped back instinctively, but the doorframe pressed against my shoulder. I wanted to apologize, to retreat, to erase every second of this moment from memory, but my words stuck in my throat. "You shouldn't have come in," she whispered, voice low, silk and venom all at once. "But now that you have..." The weight of the house seemed to press down on me. The walls closed in. The steam curled around us like a curtain separating the rest of the world, yet somehow leaving me exposed. Every heartbeat felt loud, every breath jagged and uneven. I tried to speak, tried to reclaim a shred of authority in a situation that had instantly spiraled out of control. I should call your husband," I managed, my voice cracking. Betraying my inner panic, she shook her head slowly, smiling wider, a small, controlled smile that made my face feel hot with embarrassment and fear. "No one needs to know," she whispered, stepping slightly toward me, water dripping from her arms, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous curiosity. "Just stay." I stumbled back, almost tripping over the bath mat, my palms pressed against the cool wall for balance. My pulse raced, my thoughts scrambled. This was not supposed to happen. This was not supposed to be my reality. And yet, her gaze held me fast, like a predator observing prey. Every rule I had lived by my whole life, boundaries, respect, caution, crumbled in that instant. I had always maintained distance from her, treated her politely, like a guest in my family's home. And yet here I was, caught in a situation that felt like it could destroy everything in one misstep. She stepped out from behind the curtain of steam, her skin glistening under the bathroom lights, her eyes locking onto mine with a confidence that made my stomach churn. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, calculated. The way she leaned slightly forward, the tilt of her head, the curve of her lips, it was as though she had rehearsed this moment in private, waiting for the exact second she could unsettle me completely. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I wanted to avert my gaze, to step away, to close the door and erase the memory. But some part of me couldn't look away, couldn't deny the undeniable tension radiating from her. She was aware. Every glance, every subtle movement said she knew the effect she had on me. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, though my voice lacked conviction. My body shook slightly despite my efforts to remain composed. This isn't right." She tilted her head and smiled, letting the words hang between us. "Right? Or just unexpected?" She teased, her tone playful, dangerous. Teasing all at once. The sound of water dripping onto the marble floor, the faint hiss of steam, the soft creak of the doorframe beneath my grip, they filled the silence, magnifying the tension to unbearable levels. My heartbeat was deafening. My hands shook. My thoughts raced, trying to find a way out, trying to pretend none of this had happened. For one long, unbearable moment, we stood there, staring at each other, a world of unspoken words suspended in the air. My mind screamed with every rational thought, yet a part of me froze in shock, unable to reconcile reality with what I was witnessing. And then she whispered again. Low and deliberate, the words curling around me like a cold wind. You've seen too much. But maybe that's exactly what I wanted. My face went pale. My stomach dropped. My whole body felt the weight of what had just happened. And I realized with a shiver that this night, this one accidental step into her world, was about to change everything. I blinked, my mind racing, trying to reclaim composure. But her eyes, that knowing smile, the soft drip of water off her body, held me captive. And in that moment, I understood something horrifying. This was no accident. I backed out of the bathroom slowly, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to steady my pulse. But my mind was already spiraling. Every step I took down the hall felt heavier than the last. I could still see her smile in my mind, hear her voice whispering like a secret I wasn't supposed to know. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heartbeat thundering, and realized just how much this single, accidental glimpse had unsettled me. I tried to tell myself it was just a mistake. She was my daughter-in-law. She was married to my son. Nothing had to come of this. I repeated it like a mantra, but every time I blinked, the memory of her standing there, the steam curling around her, the way she looked at me as if she knew something I didn't, replayed over and over. I walked down to the living room, hoping to distract myself by checking my phone, maybe reading a message, anything to focus my mind on something normal. But the house felt different now. The shadows cast by the floor lamp seemed longer, more deliberate. The ticking of the clock sounded louder, almost impatient, like it knew what had just happened and refused to let me ignore it. Then I heard it. The faintest creak above me, the bedroom door opening. My son's wife stepped out, wrapped in a towel, dripping slightly onto the hardwood floor. My stomach dropped. I froze, unsure if she had noticed me, unsure if I should run or stay. She smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made my skin crawl and my brain scream all at once. Relax, she said softly, leaning against the doorway. I'm not mad. Her words were designed to disarm, to lure, to confuse. I clenched my fists, trying to maintain some shred of dignity, but my voice came out shaky. I need to. I can't. She stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. The steam followed her like a ghost, curling around her body and casting a hazy aura in the dim hallway. She whispered, "Don't worry about your son. He's asleep. No one needs to know." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Everything in me screamed to leave, to close the door, to never speak of this, to pretend it had never happened. But her gaze pinned me to the spot, full of mischief and something darker I couldn't name. I tried to step back, but she moved with me, keeping pace, her towel slipping slightly at the edges. My mind raced. This was impossible, wrong in every conceivable way, yet utterly magnetic. My pulse pounded so loud I thought the whole house could hear it. "You shouldn't have seen me," she whispered again, her voice softer now, almost conspiratorial. "But maybe it's better that you did." The words made my blood run cold. I could feel the weight of their meaning pressing down on me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. My entire body felt paralyzed, caught between fear, confusion, and an undeniable awareness of the tension she radiated. Then she laughed softly, almost playfully, a sound that seemed innocent but carried a dangerous undertone. My stomach lurched. I realized she wasn't just teasing, she was testing me. Testing how far I would go before fleeing, testing my composure, testing the boundaries I had always held for our interactions. I backed up again, my hands brushing against the wall, grounding myself, trying to reclaim control over my own body. This can't happen, I finally managed, voice trembling with suppressed panic. She shook her head slowly, eyes glinting. It already has, she said. And now? We wait. I didn't know what she meant. I didn't know what the next moment would bring. But the air around me was charged with an intensity I had never felt before. The quiet of the house felt wrong now, the shadows too long, the silence too thick. I could feel the weight of something imminent, a storm waiting to break, and I was standing in the eye of it. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, I couldn't tell. Every small sound made me jump, the faint creak of floorboards, the rustle of curtains, even the soft drip of water from the bathroom. My pulse never slowed. My mind refused to quiet. And through it all, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same after tonight. Her whispered words, that impossible smile, the knowing tilt of her head, they would haunt me for the rest of the night. The rest of the week, the rest of my life if I let them. And I knew, deep in my gut, that this encounter was not random. It was deliberate, carefully measured. A trap I had stumbled into by accident. And the worst part? I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen next. The rest of the night passed like a fog. I stayed in my study, pretending to read, pretending to concentrate on the stack of papers before me, but every sound in the house made my chest tighten. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of floorboards, even the whisper of air through the vents, all of it felt amplified, charged, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for what was coming next. I couldn't stop thinking about her. My son's wife. The way she had smiled at me, the way she had whispered. The memory burned into my mind, replaying over and over, and every time I tried to push it away, it came back stronger. I told myself it was just a mistake. It had to be. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Something had broken in the invisible walls I had carefully built around myself. By the time the first hints of dawn crept through the curtains, I was on edge, pacing the room, unable to sit still. My thoughts tumbled over each other. Did she know I was thinking about it this way? Was she planning something? Was this some kind of game, or worse, a trap? I felt like a man on a precipice, aware that one false step could send me tumbling into a nightmare I could never escape. And then I heard movement. Soft, deliberate. Not the creak of the house settling, not the sound of my own imagination. Someone walking. Footsteps on the hardwood, careful, controlled. My pulse leapt. I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles white. The footsteps stopped just outside the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. Still awake? Her voice, low and smooth, whispered through the crack of the door. I swallowed hard, unable to form words. My body tensed, every muscle coiled like a spring. She leaned against the doorframe, towel still clinging to her damp skin, hair slicked back, droplets of water catching the early morning light like tiny sparks. Her eyes glinted with mischief and something darker I couldn't name. She wasn't just teasing now, she was in control, and I was utterly exposed. I didn't think you'd make it this far, she said softly, almost approvingly. Most men would have run long ago. I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice failed me. Every instinct told me to retreat, to leave, to pretend none of this had happened. But her gaze held me fast, a magnetic pull I couldn't resist, a dangerous gravity that rooted me in place. I shouldn't be here, I managed at last, voice shaking with a mix of fear, confusion, and something else I dared not name. Her smile widened, slow and deliberate. You're right. You shouldn't be. But now that you are, let's see how well you handle this. Her words were like ice on my skin, sending shivers down my spine. I felt the room shrink around me, the air thickening, charged with anticipation. The steam from the shower had long since vanished, leaving only the memory of warmth, the lingering scent of soap and water, and the undeniable sense that something was about to happen, something I could not control. I took a step back, desperate to reclaim some semblance of authority, some shred of normalcy. My hands trembled slightly, my pulse racing. This can't happen. It's wrong, I stammered. She shook her head slowly, stepping closer, her eyes never leaving mine. Wrong or inevitable? She asked, letting the question hang in the air like a challenge. I swallowed, my throat dry, and realized that this was no longer about accident or mistake. This was a test, a confrontation. And no matter how I moved, how I breathed, how I tried to push it away, I was caught. Trapped in a web of her making, completely at the mercy of her calm, calculated presence. Minutes stretched, dragging themselves out endlessly. The house seemed to hold its breath along with me. Every second was a tightrope walk, every glance a potential disaster. And through it all, her smile never faltered. Her gaze never wavered, her calm presence dominating every inch of the space between us. Finally, as the first light of morning illuminated the edges of the room, she stepped back, still smiling, still in control. "Rest for now," she whispered. "But remember, what happens next is up to you." I sank into a chair, exhausted, trembling, aware that the night had changed something fundamental. Everything I thought I knew about boundaries, about respect, about control, had been shattered. And I knew with a sinking heart that the next encounter, whatever it would be, could determine the course of everything. I sat there, staring at the morning light, my mind racing, my body tense, and realized something terrifying. I was already caught by mid-morning. The house felt heavier, almost suffocating. Every corner, every shadow seemed to be waiting for something, some reckoning I couldn't yet name. I paced the living room, trying to calm my racing thoughts, trying to remind myself that I was a man in control, a man with decades of experience navigating life's storms. But nothing in my life had prepared me for this. The lingering tension from the previous night, the whispered words, the impossible smile, it all weighed on me like a physical presence, pressing against my chest. Tightening with every passing moment, I could hear her moving through the house. Soft footsteps on hardwood, water dripping from the bathroom floor where she had lingered. My heart thudded, every instinct screaming at me to leave, to escape this impossible situation. But I couldn't. Something deep inside told me that turning away now would mean losing control entirely. And so I stayed, trembling, waiting for whatever would come next. Then she appeared, fully dressed now, her posture calm, her expression teasing but unreadable. She leaned against the doorframe, hands folded, watching me with an intensity that made my blood run cold. The early morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the sharp angles of her face, highlighting the small, deliberate movements of her lips. My stomach twisted. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, to reassert my authority, but I could barely form words. "You've been thinking about last night," she said softly. "I can see it in your eyes. Every glance, every breath, every hesitation. Admit it, you can't stop." I swallowed hard. I wanted to deny it, to claim composure, to act as though nothing had happened. But the truth weighed on me like a stone. Yes, I had thought about it. Every second, every detail replayed in my mind with unbearable clarity. My pulse raced. My body felt tense, taut, as though the room itself had tightened around me. She smiled again, slow, deliberate, dangerous. "Good," she whispered. "Because now you understand. You see how easily a moment, a single mistake, can shift everything." I stepped back, pressing my hand to the wall, my knuckles white, trying to regain balance, control, dignity. My mind raced, scrambling for solutions, for a way to end this without losing everything. But she was in control. Every word, every glance, Every breath she took reminded me of that. I realized with a sinking feeling that she had been orchestrating this all along, watching, waiting for the right moment. I took another step back, and the house seemed to close in, walls compressing, air thickening. I could hear the soft rustle of fabric, the faint hum of distant appliances, the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat, all magnified, all impossible to ignore. She stepped closer again, eyes locked on mine, and I could feel the weight of inevitability pressing down. "You can't undo what's happened," she said softly, almost gently, "but you can choose what comes next." Her words hit me like a hammer. I realized then that this encounter was not about her, not about me, not even about my son. It was about power, about control, about testing boundaries, and I had failed, unknowingly. Every carefully maintained line of respect and distance had been shattered. And now the only question left was how I would respond. I drew a deep breath, steadying myself, grounding every muscle in my body. For a long moment, I said nothing, letting the silence stretch, letting her watch, letting her know that I had not yet surrendered completely. The air between us was electric, charged with anticipation, tension, and unspoken understanding. Then I spoke, calm, measured, every word deliberate. "This stops now. I will not be manipulated. I will not be part of this. And you will respect the boundaries of this family, or you will face the consequences." Her eyes flickered, surprise, curiosity, perhaps even admiration, but she didn't speak. She simply tilted her head, the teasing edge of her smile still there, but tempered now by a recognition of the shift in power. I could feel my pulse slow, the tension in my muscles easing slightly. For the first time since the accident, I felt a spark of control, a glimmer of authority returning. I realized then that sometimes the quietest, calmest response carries the most power. Sometimes presence alone is enough to command respect, to set boundaries, to restore balance. She finally stepped back, her smile fading into something more neutral, contemplative. I could see the acknowledgement in her eyes, the realization that I was no longer a passive observer, no longer a victim of circumstance. I had stood my ground, asserted my authority, and reclaimed the balance that had been threatened. I took another deep breath, letting it out slowly. The morning light felt warmer, the house quieter, the air easier to breathe. I realized that mistakes, accidents, and unexpected encounters could shake us to the core. But our responses, our choices, defined the outcome. And that's when I understood. Fully and completely, some lessons are learned in silence. Some strength is found in stillness. And sometimes, the most powerful response is simply standing your ground.